What's up, movie nerds? Welcome back to the Movie Nerd James Instagram page and YouTube channel. I am, of course, back with another podcast episode, and I am actually joined by Chad Eversole, my uncle, for the very first time. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
So we're back, and we're doing something I've been looking forward to is we're doing Dune Part 2 spoiler talk. And this is actually going to be I would say, a part 2 of my review because there's so much stuff that I wanted to spill out, but I couldn't without dropping spoilers. And if it's not a dead giveaway, and the title of this video or this podcast is actually called Dune Part 2 Spoiler Talk. So if you have not seen Dune, make sure you go see it and then you come right back to this. But we will be talking spoilers, so that is your warning. If you haven't seen it, you probably don't want to listen to this video, but maybe save it, watch the movie, and then come back to watch the spoiler talk. So, but like I said, with the warning out of the way, before we get into this, I don't want to say that we're book experts. We're not book experts on Dune or nothing like that. We're just huge fans of the book. I think I read the book when I was 12 for the first time. It's and I've been obsessed with, once I found out in 2016 that Denis Villeneuve was doing an adaptation of the book, and then now here we are. So it's kind of a reality. The first book has been adapted. But I do have recommendations. If anybody wants to go to anybody that's book experts, I actually follow a YouTube channel called Nerd Cookies. She's incredible at her videos and really dives into the lore. And there's also Secrets of Dune is incredible. And then also there's Quinn Stotts. He does a lot of stuff. It's very detailed into Dune things. So I always recommend them out there because they explain Dune way better than I could. So yeah, definitely check them out. But once again, I'm excited. I have my uncle here. We've been looking forward to this. And then last night, we went and seen Dune Part 2. So you seen it for your first time. It was my fifth or sixth time I've seen it. I've lost count at this point. Right. So it's pretty fresh in our brains. So yeah, the first thing, let's get right into this little review. And once again, I do have a daughter. So there could be, at any moment, she could make a little cameo appearance in this podcast and stuff like that. So we're trying to do this and stuff. So just a warning. And then also that so when we're breaking down this movie, we will go down rabbit hole. So I just a forewarning. So the first thing I wanted to start with was Greg Fraser's cinematography. That's and Chad, I'll let you take it away. So what'd you think?
Oh, sure, yeah. For me, it's nice because it really picked up right where the other one left off. I'm really looking forward to when it's available to view, whether you buy the box set that's coming out, the steel book, or if you, watch it streaming, whatever. But watching them back to back, it'll feel like just a super cohesive, long, awesome movie to watch. And cinematography wise, it's fantastic. You would think with, being so sandy all the time, and it's being, just what can you do with it all? But they definitely had the right person in place for cinematography because, it just every shot felt super epic, and we watched it in IMAX, of course, and it just made it all the better. Being able to see the expanse of the sandy dunes, and no pun intended, but it was just it was nice. What can you say? It just we've seen the trailers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, and you can, right away, it's you're gonna be in for a treat. You're gonna see something that you don't get to see that often, and that's it was great.
Yeah, once again, like I said, I might jump all over the place with this one with the visual effects and the cinematography. The one thing I really liked was that Denis Villeneuve and Greg Fraser actually worked with the visual effects crew, which that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is, because there's so many blockbuster movies now that you see that they take visual effects packages and they just send them off to the VFX thing. They have no hands-on. The filmmaker has no hands-on. They're just hey, I need blah, 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 these shots, and just do them. Oh, and you kind of felt with Denis Villeneuve and Greg Fraser working with the visual effect crew, you still had that. It didn't seem like it was someone else's movie when it came to the action thing. It still felt like Denis Villeneuve's. Right. And then same thing with, I'll start at the beginning. We'll go back to the beginning. The Greg Fraser's, the planetary eclipse, and just giving that real dark orange.
Yeah.
It was just rad. And then the one thing I got goosebumps. I'm you kind of just, okay, now we're locked in. We're good to go. Is when the Harkonnens go towards that mountain, and then they
Oh.
just scale up the side of it.
Jeez, yeah.
So I just those little elevators on their side or whatever are just like that's one of like the coolest inventions and stuff like that.
One of the other videos I saw about it, and that was one of the things that they talked about, was how seamless they went from being on the ground to like scaling up this mountain, and you expect it to, you hear it and you think, oh, I probably look kind of cheesy, it's like these guys are just shooting up this mountain,
Yeah.
but it looked really cool. And,
Yeah.
it just goes to show you that they have this technology and aren't afraid to get in there with it and find these people and do anything they can to do it.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out for them.
Yeah, and this has a lot to do with the kind of how they shot the sandworms. It was like basically really good job. Of course, we'll get to details about the sandworm ride here in a second, but just the scale of the sandworms.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool towards the end of the film when the solder car, you're from the ground level shot and it just comes through the dust cloud and all that stuff. So it just really shows the massive scale and all that stuff, and really it shows the massive scale and the cinematography of Greg Fraser and everybody involved. It was incredible. Like when Fade, which is probably my favorite scene in the whole thing, is when Fade's in the Coliseum combat for Giddy Prime.
Yeah.
It was just like him walking across and does that back pan shot, and of course Hans Zimmer's score's kicking in, and it just like it's just so epic. And then of course the one visual effects thing, being on the subject of the Giddy Prime, was the infrared. How they shot that whole scene, I was just incredible. It was without a doubt one of my favorite scene of the whole thing, because it was it was just incredible how they did it.
It's almost like an intermission,
Yeah.
So you've got all the desert and everything happening, and then this comes and,
Yep.
and it starts off. It's it's in color, for lack of a better word, but it's in color, and then right when those kind of blast shields open and the Baron is being pushed out into the
Yep.
into the arena, then it goes all black and white, and they talk about the black sun, and you kind of get to see a little bit of what that looks like, which it's hard to imagine a black sun, doing. I mean, being other than just this big black blob, but even that was visually just really cool. And then you kind of figure it out. It's like, oh, okay, that's why everybody's just in this white glow, and all the darks are dark and the lights are super light. So it made sense once you finally got the chance to see it.
Yeah, and then one of the details too. It's like you said, you already talked about the Baron, where he just goes from color to black and white.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool just to see the Benny Gesserit. You just see him in black all the time, and then they just go into the light and they got these like white cloaks on. I'm like, it's like, and
so
you actually
different.
could see in some scenes it's so dark you don't see these little details in their dress.
Yeah,
And
I love
once again,
that.
that's a shout out to Jacqueline West, who's. I've said in my review too. I said she's like coming for a vengeance for that best costume design Oscar, because
man.
we talked about like no disrespect to the costume designer Corella, but I couldn't believe that Dune Part 1 did not win for best costume design. But it looks like she's coming back with a vengeance in this one.
Oh, it's beautiful stuff, and so much of it.
Yeah,
I mean, good grief. She probably had, I don't know, a crew of a couple hundred people sewing and fabricating all this stuff. It was
Had to
amazing. Yeah, amazing stuff.
yeah. It's like well, when it goes to white, you could actually see there was like details like down the sides of their cloaks
The
or dress.
embroidery.
Yeah.
It was really, really nice.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I never noticed that little detail, but going to that white, it really exposes that, so that was really rad. But yeah, I think, once again, I can't say enough. I think I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if I see any better cinematography this year. I think, I'm not trying to get too ahead because we're only in March right now, but I honestly will be shocked if there's any better cinematography than Greg Fraser.
Furiosa.
Yeah, Furiosa maybe. I just like
it.
there's like it's just I don't know. Is now that Mickey 7 got pushed to 2025, it's like with that being the sci-fi thing, I don't know, but yeah, we'll have to see in the wave. But man, it's
I think Planet of the Apes, when it comes out, the new one, it might have some neat stuff. But after seeing the kind of an extended trailer for it before Dune, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it'd be tough to compete with Dune.
And then like I said, the final note, just like the visual effects, they're nothing short of groundbreaking. jaw dropping, whatever word of praise you want to throw at it. I just think it was incredible what they achieved. And once again, if I think Dune 1 is just visually gorgeous, and this one, I think surpasses it. And it's just like, and that's what you want to. I mean, I think it's the same with the Lord of the Rings. It's like the different transition to each film.
It gets
more
better.
epic and more scale or whatever. But moving on from visual effects, I wanted to go into Hans Zimmer's score. I know we talked about it a little bit with the Giddy Prime. Like I said, just how it hits. And once again, I'm going to say surpassing a lot because, I love Dune 1. I think it's a flawless film as well. But, I think his score, surpasses, Dune 1. And I love the score he did for Dune 1. I mean, he won a freaking Oscar for it. So.
Yeah. That's hard. Well, we all know, Hans Zimmer's been in the game a long time, and it definitely was a good continuation and evolution from the first one to this, because it's like a good score, it isn't in your face, and it isn't like, hey, I'm here, and pay attention to me. I'm more important than what's going on screen, because it's not. So he just does that so well. Always has done that so well, where it becomes just part of the movie. You equate when you hear those sounds, because he does so much with sound design in a way that it becomes trapped with the song. Like, that wouldn't work anywhere else, but you hear it on there, you're just like, it's Dune. It's so good.
Yeah, I know a lot of people they gripe about that, like, all that stuff. I'm like, I actually love it because it's like you said, it's like I don't know how you call it, like a basically a voice of the film. It's like you're like, that's it, and all that stuff.
But not in a way that makes you think of like Earth, Earth tribal stuff, But it has enough truth in that you can tell, like, this is what it's for.
Yeah, and it's and like you said too, it's like what was it, like the alien feel that you got on Giddy Prime, like when he's walking across and it's like all that stuff. It's like just the shred of the guitar. It was just like it felt like it was an alien, and I was just like, once again, I'm gonna go to that Giddy Prime scene a bunch in this review, because like it just, everything was clicking. Like even when Fade is about to come out, and it's like you hear the guy on the announcer, and he's like, Fade Rafa, and then the stadium door just opens up. It's like don don don. It's like it's incredible. And then of course when Paul makes his transition to the Lisan al Gaib, it's like somebody said it felt almost like terrifying. I'm like, that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like.
Terrifying. Yeah.
And then when he's getting off the worm and you see the back shot, it's like, that's what it's supposed to be. He's like, it almost felt like he was supposed to be scary in that moment, because it was terrifying. I'm like, that's exactly what it was supposed to go for.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was, it evoked those feelings for sure. And, it plays on, those transitions, which, like I said, Hans Zimmer is so good at, going from, in the same scene to evoke different feelings just from a few notes. And that's why he is who he is. Yeah, John Williams. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, and then they kind of do it in Dune 1. I think the main scene that pops in my head from Dune 1, and it does it multiple times throughout. But when Duke Leto and Lady Jessica, he like, Duke Leto's like, I'm asking you as the Bene Gesserit, and they had that little confrontation about Paul. He's never been the same, blah blah blah. So they have that little confrontation in the back, in the music score. You can hear the Bene Gesserit theme, like, kind of whisper in. And he does that a lot in Dune 2, and I love that little sprinkle in there. And he also does it with when Paul finds out that Lady Jessica is actually the daughter of Baron Harkonnen. That you can hear the Baron Harkonnen thing kind of seep in. So it's just like, it's, once again, like I said, I think it's like a powerful voice of the film, and it feels like a character itself, just sneaking in there and all that stuff. So once again, I just, phenomenal. I mean, Hans Zimmer, once again, he's just a man. But and then this, like I said, this is the one I think we're going to break down some characters, and I think this is going to lead into a lot of rabbit holes and stuff like that. But the first person I wanted to break down was Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan. and Christopher Walken. I'm going to do it like a double here.
That's good. That works.
I think this is definitely an upgraded role for the Princess Irulan character. She has a lot more to do in this compared to the book, and I don't know. Like once again, bad for me. I should have reread the book and stuff like that, freshened up before I went and seen Dune 2. Which I usually do, but I didn't do it for some reason. Life, work,
Time,
things.
yeah.
It's all that stuff. So, but in the book, it was more the Emperor worked from the shadows, and he really didn't even come into it until the end of the book.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And we knew that he set these plans in place, trying to get rid of the Atreides family, all that stuff. So it was kind of like a lot of people were I've seen people disappointed about Christopher Walken not having much screen time. I'm like, really? There's not much physical book time for the Emperor. He's just working behind the scenes, and he's putting these pieces in place, which I like that and stuff like that. But I thought Christopher Walken did really good for the limited time that he had. Do I think he's like phenomenal? Like, oh my God, blew my sock? No, but I think his powerful moment definitely was when he gave the speech to Paul, and I really like that line that he said, "The heart is not meant to rule." And he's like, that's that's why your father was a weak man. I'm just like that little jab in there at the end.
I mean, he at that point, he knew he was probably going to die.
Yeah,
it was just the interesting part. Like he sees the writing on the wall. It's like this is probably it. So I'm just going to say what I want to say. And, not thinking like he's probably going to kill me right after I say this. He just says it.
Yep.
And that at that point you see like somebody that's been a ruler for a long time, and probably at some point may have been more like a Leto. If you just imagine him younger, imagine him with that fieriness that he had in that speech. Like he probably was a decent ruler at the time.
Yeah.
But as he got older and he saw other families come into power and thought like, well, my time's probably about up. If this family continues on the course they're on, they're probably going to usurp me and take over, and I don't want that, so I'm going to get them killed.
Yep. And well, in the book, and then also even it's definitely hinted at in the first movie as well, is the Emperor in the book was a very paranoid, king or emperor, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Is he's seen, like you got to before, it's like this rising family, and a lot of the houses are looking at them. And even Duke Leto says it in the first film. He's like that the great houses are looking at us for guidance and all that stuff. So, of course, even in the opening monologue, Princess Irulan says he loved you like a son, Duke Leto, and I believe that.
Yeah.
But he was so paranoid that somebody was going to take his throne, even somebody that he has great respect for. Got to take him out. It's just like that's how paranoid this man was.
Historically, it wouldn't be the first time a king killed his son because he was worried that he was going to come and take his place. So,
exactly. So
it's very interesting.
And then I like the little faithful elements that they gave to Princess Irulan, where she like does her little book logs and all that stuff
I like that
you got in the book and all that stuff. So I thought that was really cool. And then the heart was not meant to rule. We got to that speech, and then of course I just kind of like the sprinkling, because I know you haven't read Dune Messiah yet,
right?
But it was just really sprinkling how much of how much they're blooming, Florence Pugh to do basically like a political viper. You use politics, and even once again, like I said, I think Christopher Walken did a great job with the limited time that they gave him. Once again, it was like the book. He says, "You'll be a formidable empress," or whatever. And once again, he just sees it. They're just prepping her. And like I said, the only way I can describe it is like a blooming flower. She's starting to bloom, that she's going to be a real threat to something like that. And that'll come into, behind the scenes. And
but he was okay with it. That's the thing too. Yep. It's like, well, I'm okay with that. The idea that she would take my place, but not the idea that someone else would.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the upgraded to the Princess Irulan character, because there is that trinity that you're going to have between Chani, Chani. I don't know how you say it. I've always said it different for years, but so I'm gonna go with Chani. But Chani, Paul, and Princess Irulan. So really setting up really something interesting for the book and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, Florence Pugh, I think she's one of the best actresses of our time, and once again, the juggernauts of actors and actresses they have in this it's incredible. But yeah, I just want to break down Florence Pugh and Christopher Walken. But moving on from that, the of course the return of Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. Probably one of my, if not, one of the top favorite characters from part one. Like, she was incredible, and then it just kind of just, nothing different. It transitions into this.
Yeah, her transition into the Reverend Mother, and everything that comes with that. She has a couple really great scenes where she is, dying and then becoming the Reverend Mother, and then other scenes where she's just in her reserved, just stillness, in the scene where she's just there, being and watching, observing everything that's going on. It's just, it's tough to act like nothing is going on, nothing's bothering you, and she does a great job of just being in the scene and kind of letting it unfold around her, and everyone knows that, at any point, she could do whatever she wants, and they understand that, but yet she just, does her thing. And Rebecca Ferguson, as her, obviously was a brilliant choice for that, and she does it again.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about this multiple times between Paul and Jessica, because to the Fremen, they're playing, it's an act. They're trying to play a play. They're like, they're trying to make them buy into this Lisan al Gaib, this prophet and things like that, because they've manufactured this prophet, the Bene Gesserit. And
for control.
That is for control. And then also, in their point of view, very selfish on their part, is to get revenge and all that stuff. So
for Paul, get revenge.
Yeah, right. It's just like, so it's you see that, but you also, there's a couple scenes like when Paul drinks the water of life, and then he actually comes back to life. You can actually see on Rebecca Ferguson's face, and once again, it's a real credit to. I think Rebecca Ferguson's a fantastic actress. So you can just see this sigh of relief on her body, because she's playing the part, but she's also mother at the same time. Like, oh my God, thank God he's alive. Yeah. And then also with, towards the end when Fade Ralph and them go into it, it's like she jumps up out of the chair, which, for as a Reverend Mother. She
hadn't done that. Movie,
that was Mother Jessica coming to the surface right there and all that stuff. So that balance to play the part, and then also just, how much she cares for Paul and all that stuff. And also, there's sometimes too where, she takes it way too far. Like, he drank the water of life. Like, this could have not worked. You just killed your son and all that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that she juggles with the character, but I think, Rebecca Ferguson hits it with aces. She's also absolutely terrifying. It's like some scenes,
definitely.
She's great. And then one of the films I tell people that's why I thought she would be like a perfect Lady Jessica was Dr. Sleep, because she's so terrifying in that movie.
Yep. Yeah, the scene where we're talking about the water of life, when she goes to that little temple and tells the gal there that someone's going to come. It's going to be a man, and he's going to want to drink the water, and the lady said, like, no, we can't do that. And she uses the voice on her and says, let him do it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she's, who she is, and she can foresee things. And I'm assuming she can foresee Paul drinking the water and living. But at the same time, there's got to be, because she also knows that the Bene Gesserit, they've planted all this information.
Yeah.
But rooted in truth a little bit here and there, at least being able to foresee things. Yeah, of course. So in her mind, she's just like, like you said, she knows it's going to be okay.
Yep.
But the mother side of her also knows, like, he's dead. He will die.
Yep.
It's very interesting dichotomy to be able to look at it from both sides for her, and in the end, it works out for him.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite moments, and you got to a little bit to it too, is her taking the water of life. And one of the, I remember reading the book, and no matter how many times I read it on the page, or if I listen to an audiobook or anything like that, is when she takes the water of life, the Reverend Mother of the Fremen, she gives that look, like, gasp, like, oh God, it's like, what have we done?
What have we done?
She's pregnant and all that stuff. And even in the book, I'm like, oh no,
what does that mean?
Yeah, because we don't know, like, what they do, and all that stuff, and then you find out, the abomination is born in Alia Atreides. So, and that's the thing back to Lady Jessica too. It's like, when this stuff comes out and it spills out, like when she tells I don't know, I'm just gonna call her the worm tamer.
Yeah, Worm Tamer.
The she says quiet to Alia and all that stuff. So how much in the head and how much of using the voice leaked out was that Alia on the inside? Like, hey, you know, we got to get this going and all
It's
that
true.
stuff. Yeah, so that makes me wonder.
Because we know that Ollie is able to speak through Jessica.
Yeah.
Because she does it at the later points of the movie. So that's a good point. You see Jessica quite a bit talking to herself, you know, as she's talking to Alia. But yeah, that's a good point. Any sounds could be either one of them.
Yep. And what was it like? And then the water of life hitting Alia is like, and she's still in the fetus. It was like basically infused into her DNA.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like now that you know she has foresight and sees all the past.
Yep.
And even that cool little conversation between Paul and Lady Jessica, and she was like, she knows when you're lying and all that stuff. It's like she's just coming to the surface talking, like she's
Yeah.
literally standing there. So, and then of course, I guess while we're on the subject of the Alia Atreides, Anna Taylor-Joy
Yeah.
is going to be playing the older version, which I guess we can talk about that now. Is like in Dune Messiah. I know you haven't read it yet, but I've told you a little bit of details. But it's a 12-year time jump from Dune, the end of the first Dune book, and then it's Paul and his holy war, and then it takes place 12 years later.
Wow.
But now, I know now that you know Alia, it wasn't even born before we said it because Denis Villeneuve changed it from 2 years to 2 months. So Alia was never born. You know, once again, she's on the inside working from in the inside.
Like
so
a Bene Gesserit would be.
Yep,
On the
exactly.
inside working.
So it was just like, so now they've done that, I could possibly see that they're going to make the Holy War stretch out a little bit longer. When the
Agreed.
book's like maybe 22 years.
I mean, and that's very impactful.
Yeah.
When you think about that. I mean, we, you know, being on this earth, you know, we've seen wars that did that, you know, stretched out like that. But it just goes to show you that, you know, typically you get like in the Middle East where it's more religious based wars versus land based wars like the United States is used to being in. But like their wars are still going on.
Yep.
I mean, they just fight nonstop, and that's what you would get. Something like that. That's a whole planet. We're only talking little pieces of
Like galaxy.
real estate.
Yeah.
That's a whole planet in the the galaxy itself. So that's going to last a while.
Yeah, so I could definitely see them doing a bigger time jump. And then once again, I hope nobody's getting their hopes up because I could definitely see like a Fellowship of the Ring opening for Dune Messiah, the film, as they just show the Holy War through the years.
Definitely.
And we're about to get into the character, but you know, even when you know Paul says something about Chani, it's like, you know, I'm sorry. Lady Jessica said, "I'm sorry about Chani," and he's like, "She'll come to understand." So we'll, you know, kind of get that. But before we get the actually, let's do that. Let's stay on the subject of Chani real quick. And, so yeah, you know. One of the things, we hardly got anything of Chani in the first part, and I knew that was going to make a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
But as book readers, you knew she was going to be hardly in this film. You seen when Paul's having his visions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know she's heavily influenced in there, of course.
Right.
But I knew she was going to have a bigger part in this. The controversial thing right now, I've seen among book readers, and I've seen people that's viewed it for the first time, and even book people that love the book. They, I've always tried to tell people you're going to have different adaptions, because if you have a beat for beat adaptation of the book, I would be happy. Absolutely, I would be happy. Because I'm a book reader.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm no Harry Potter. If you had beat for beat, everybody would be super happy as a book reader. If you have Lord of the Rings beat for beat, as the book readers would be extremely happy. And it may be some regular moviegoers, but most of the time, the regular moviegoers.
This is really long.
Yeah, you need something more cinematic and stuff like that. That's why it's hard for me to explain what I mean by this, but I think Dune Part 2 isn't a perfect adaptation of the book, but I think it's a flawless cinematic adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
And everything into the screenplay that Denis Villeneuve and sorry, I'm trying to find his name real quick, but Denis Villeneuve and them, they adapt John Splatz, I think is how you say his name, or John Spates, maybe that's how you say it. But how they adapted the screenplay, it was so much material, and I thought it was just phenomenal how much they fit into the film. And
sure.
And once again, we have an example of that from '84. Is when you cram too much. You're trying to do too much with one film. So
Yeah.
But yeah, just and then on the we'll just get into the Zendaya's Chani character. Yes, they've done something very interesting in this film, and I'll throw it off to you here in a second. They divided the religious belief. You had the North and the South, and all that stuff.
That was unexpected. Coming into it and seeing kind of what they were trying to do, and then Chani, her big thing was in the South, where at least from the Emperor's standpoint, they can't really see what's going on, but that's the fanatics are there, the fundamentalists are there, and they're with Lady Jessica at one point in the movie when she gets taken there. She's really working hard to get this big group that's there, millions of Fremen that are there, to as soon as they see Paul, basically it's like, well, here he is, our Messiah is here. We need to be ready for this war that's coming. And Chani, she does not like that. She, after being with Paul for all this time now, and knowing like his visions and stuff for this holy war, and she doesn't want it to come, but she knows it's going to, and sending Lady Jessica there to kind of prime all that to pop off, it's like her biggest fear. At least it seems like that's kind of what's going on. But yeah, in Zendaya, she does a great job. She does a lot of very calm kind of acting too, just like Rebecca Ferguson does, where it's just you just see it in her face.
Exactly.
She's got a lot of that. It gives him like a little side eye thing, like, hey, watch what you're saying, and in the end, she's still a Fremen, and he's still an outsider, even though now they're together.
Yep.
But she still is watching out for her people, and she says that at the end of the movie as well. It's like, I'm not getting in these spaceships and attacking the Imperium. I'm going to go take care of my people.
Yep.
She means, the people of Arrakis. So she goes off and does her thing, and we're left to ponder what happens in the next movie with her.
Yeah, well, you got it too. Like, just basically, it's super talented, because the first person that comes to my mind, I think, is like the master of doing this is Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell is just incredible with just emotion through his face and stuff like that. Because and that's an extremely talent, and that's why I think Zendaya is very talented. Because, like you said, sometimes there is no words. You can see it in the face, and her ability to pull that off as a performer, it was incredible. Like towards the end, like you said, before she mounts the sandworm and the credits roll, it's like you see her like on the verge of just bawling, and then it just goes to anger and all that stuff. So it's just like I thought that was great. And then of course it's all over her face, just speaking from her emotions on her face alone. Is when Paul, they're chanting Lisa Nagaib down in the Sietch or whatever, like where everybody comes together in the South. And I forgot to say something about that during the visual effects, like that, the little lights peering through the temple scene, like
showing the little groups of people, so you can see how big it really was. Yeah, it was
chef's kiss, good stuff. Yeah, but brilliant. In that scene, when they're chanting Lisa Nagaib and Paul's got him. He's used this prophet. They've taken the hook, line, and sinker, and he's got him. It's and then you just see the look on Chani's face, like what have you done? All that stuff. So
we talked about yesterday about that being a departure from the book with Chani, and that he does not come out and say, hey, Chani, after he talks, him and Princess Irulan, they decide that the best thing to do for the Imperium is to get married. Yeah. And he doesn't break that to Chani first or anything. He just says it, and she's got this look on her face like, what the heck? You just told me you love me till your last breath and all this. Now you're saying you're going to marry this gal. And, in the Fremen world, I'm assuming, is what, her frame of reference is. Once you say that you love somebody and that you're going to be with them forever, you don't go marrying somebody else, no matter what the reasoning is. And in the book, he tells her, hey, I'm with you, period. Yep. And I'll never have children with this princess. She'll never know any affection for me. It's just you and I all the way. Just like with Lady Jessica and the Duke. You know,
Yep.
they were not married, but they were together. You know, they were essentially married. So he said that's going to be our relationship. But they don't do that in Dune Part Two, and you know, it sets it up for the next movie, which we understand that's probably the reasoning behind it. But oh man, it makes you so mad. No,
Yep.
not that they changed it. I'm just saying for Chani.
Yeah,
it
exactly,
makes
for
you
the
feel for
Chani
her so
character,
much
yeah.
that you're just like, man, that Paul's a real piece of work.
Yeah, and and he also he hints at it too when he says he can see clearly now after he took the water of life, and he's like,
Yeah.
Shawnee will come to understand, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that arc will have a resolution in the opening credits, like eventually Shawnee came to understand. I don't know if that'll be disappointing for people,
Honestly, I think it would be.
Yeah,
I think we need
yeah.
to see a little bit more of her being mad at Paul.
Yeah, and then
He
eventually,
deserves it.
yeah, we even talked about this too. Like one of the things I guess we can talk about the people that aren't in this from the book. There's no mention of Chani being Kynes' daughter, Liat Kynes. There's no mention of that and stuff like that. So
even when we know Leah Kynes dies,
yeah,
you
and
know?
and I was a little disappointed at that because that was kind of the little connection between Paul and Chani was they both lost parents.
Yeah.
And all that
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, that kind of stuff they didn't put in that, but once again, I know it's a cinema adaptation. There's almost just as much time you get. Now, granted, yeah, I think in a couple seconds you could have been like
you could have
Chani,
said that.
all that stuff. But I don't know. Once again, it's not my film. I'm not gonna.
Well, even when he's discussing with her Fremen name,
Yeah.
she could have said Kynes.
Yep.
In it, but she doesn't.
Yep.
They just,
And
just
that
left
could
it
have been
out.
that could have been a cool time to show that
Yeah.
she just lost her mother, because now that they changed Kynes to a female, it's
Right.
like hey, she just lost her mother, but she sheds no tears because
yeah.
Fremen can't give water to the dead.
That's right.
So
That's right.
and then of course on the subject of Chani and stuff that didn't happen compared to the book is Leto the Second is not born in this film.
Correct.
Now we talked about what they could possibly set up for Dune Part 2 or Dune Messiah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is you bring in Duke Leto the Second,
Yeah.
but you make him an older version because by the blue sash and all that stuff that Chani had it's a sign that the Fremen are pregnant.
Yeah.
So they don't say it in the film and stuff like that. So could they
Yeah,
have
left it out.
could she be pregnant by the end of the film that we've seen and all that stuff? And she so yeah, Duke Leto the Second isn't born, and in the book, spoiler alert, this is spoiler talk, but spoilers for the book, Leto the Second was actually killed as a
that
baby.
battle.
Yeah, as a baby in that thing. So I think that would be really cool if, of course, you're going to have Paul's two other children born by the end of Messiah.
Yeah.
That sets up Children of Dune and things like that. But I think if you had an older version of Leto the Second and he dies in Dune Messiah, you can kind of the tragic and the fall of Paul. On top of that, he lost his first child.
It's more cinematic.
Yeah.
It'll give you like you're saying it is more motivation there. Unlike the book when all you have is somebody walks up and says, "Oh yeah, your son's dead."
Yep.
It's like, "Oh dang, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me get on with what I was doing."
Yeah.
They kind of gloss over it. He does obviously. He does feel something in the book, and he feels very deeply as as the being that he is. But it would be much more impactful if it was an on-screen death.
Yep.
Like whether it was in a battle or whether it was in the arena or whatever they end up doing with it, but it would help
Yep.
set the table for Paul.
Yeah, and then the only reason why I say you do an older version of Leto the Second and
Yeah.
you probably kill him off in Messiah
Yeah.
is because maybe killing a baby in Dune Part 2 is a little brutal.
Yeah. It was. Yeah,
And-
you didn't see much of that. We only really saw one child, really in the second movie.
Yeah.
And it was during the battle. We saw a child with blood on him, kind of roaming aimlessly through the crowd, and
Yep.
once again a very beautifully shot scene that it just showed you the ravages of war, even space war in this case. Different than from what we're used to, but still it was a very well shot scene.
Yeah. Well, a very underrated scene too. Like, is not a lot of people are talking about that scene because it was even shown that even yeah, you're wearing a sci-fi movie and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but getting across that war that even the innocent are scarred by war, and
Yeah.
it's like, and this poor kid's going through like all this mayhem and just covered in blood. It's like even the innocent are scarred by war.
You
And-
assume he's looking for his parents
Yeah.
or
And
whoever,
it's-
but you
oh.
never find out. There's no resolution for it. It's just
Yep.
this kid is just roaming through, and you're just like, oh man, this
Yeah.
is terrifying.
brutal. So,
Yeah, terrible.
But going on from Zendaya, I probably want to I had a two-way tie, and we'll get on to Timothy Chalamet as Paul Atreides. Like I said it in the first film, and I'll say it in the second one. I think Timothy Chalamet is a perfect incarnation of Paul Atreides.
Yeah.
I really, really like Timothy Chalamet as an actor, but he absolutely blew me away in this one. The stuff that you have to tackle, and once again, it's an act. You have to play the part. You have to, and all that stuff. And he goes down into that CH temple and all that stuff, and everybody's gathered, and he was like, this is the way, and he's like, I'm pointing the way, and then he's
man.
like, anybody in here want to, basically,
Yeah.
you might want to step up and challenge me because I'm the one, and everybody whips out their knives, and we even talked about the little detail that Lady Jessica in the first one, when he's talking to Liat Kynes, like, I can give you a green paradise and all that stuff, and he starts getting like aggressive with it, and Lady Jessica whispers under her breath, she's like, easy, and then in this one, he comes in there, he just starts giving it to the Fremen,
Yeah.
and Lady Jessica whispers, she's like, slowly, and all that
Yeah,
stuff, because
slow down.
she knows they're right there, they have them, this is, it's all an act, he's playing it, and once again they took it hook, line, and sinker, and all that stuff.
That's right.
And talking about by the hand of God and all that stuff is the witness. I'm the the voice from the outer world.
I am the voice.
And then he just really got that dude in the front, telling him like,
Foresaw his
Yep.
his whole life and told him all about it to the point where the guy
Guy's
the guy was
freaking
just
out.
like, oh, what is going on here? And yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a parlor trick because he really is seeing because he's taking the water of life. So he could, aside from having the voice, which he does, which we find out that during that scene as well, when he talked to the Reverend Mother and blasts her back in her seat basically with
Yep.
the voice, and I said abomination, and first time that I think they realized that he's a male. I mean, he is the Kwisatz Haderach, because he's got the voice, and now he is the one. And yeah, that scene for me, for all of Dune 2, that was it. The culmination of Paul being Paul, because he was Paul playing a dude, pretending to be another dude.
Yep.
That's what he was, and in that scene, it all comes together in it's visually such a great way. It's so dark. It's a dark scene, but with like the little cans of light here and there showing, first of all, that this is huge room he's in with all these Fremen, and things can go south really quick, and then it's a religious scene as well, because you've got these guys who obviously are priests or higher up elders in this in this community that are telling, like, you're not a leader, you can't talk here, kill Stilgar.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll let you talk.
Yep.
It's just like, why would I do that? It's so stupid. And
Yep.
which is taken right from the book, of course, where they're wanting him to kill Stilgar and kind of take over as the leader. And why would I do that? Why would I kill
The best of us,
The
yeah.
best of us.
Yeah.
Why would I cut off my right hand? And
Yep.
it makes no sense. But that scene, and Paul's demeanor changes so much. Or Timothy Chalamet as Paul, his demeanor changes so much. You can see it in his face. It's just, and of course he's like foaming at the mouth. He's got kind of this rabid
Yep.
speech that he gives, and he's just like, his voice is getting like deeper as he's saying it, and it's just like, you just feel riled up. It's
Yeah.
like watching Rocky run up the stairs. It's just like, oh man, I'm just fired up too. I want to go kill some people.
Yeah.
I want to kill people.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that too, because that was the culmination. It's like, he just kills it in that scene,
Oh.
because I was sitting there, I'm like, this is wrong, but I'm fired up. Let's
Yeah.
go kill some people, all
Yep.
that stuff. And
all
it's
wrong.
once again, he sold it. He played the part, and
Yep.
like I said, this manufactured prophet by the Bene Gesserit, and it just came into play.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that's one of the things too with Timothy Chalamet that he does incredible in this film is the juggling of war and love, and
Yeah.
because he really does love Cheney at the end of
Yeah.
the day, but even that speech where he talks about with his mother, he's like, the Benny Gesserit you guys done to this planet is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, we gave something to hope for, and he just snaps. He's like, that's not
not hope.
hope. Yeah.
Yep.
And it just like, it's all that stuff. And the best, somebody pointed this out, I'm like, actually, that's like the perfect comparison.
Yeah.
Is that Paul is basically like Michael Corleone from Godfather. And I'm like, man, that's actually a really good comparison.
That's good.
And like I said, I know the Dune book came first, so you have Paul before
course,
the
yeah.
Godfather. But it was like, if you want a cinematic comparison, I'm like, that's
Great.
actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And this pathway that he can see and all that stuff, that Paul knows along this pathway the stuff that he's going to lose. But my wife Jessica, she watched Dune and she's like, I hate Paul. But I'm like, and that's what you're supposed to do, because every single little action he takes for this path, it can change. And this one of the actions was he has to take the hand of Princess Urulan, and basically to somewhat of a point that actually keeps some kind of peace in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Even though, spoiler alert for Dune Messiah, 61 billion lives later, is that so peaceful? But this was the path that they had to take. And so it's very heartbreaking. And also, too, you're supposed to hate Paul. You're not, it's kind of like most recently we watched Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
When Oppenheimer made the bomb, everybody's like, oh, all that movie was doing was making you feel sorry for him. Like, no. It's like Oppenheimer didn't feel sorry for himself. He even hated himself. It's just
he tried
like
to stay on the council.
It's one of those juggles. It's like, oh, you walk out of that movie, you're like, I really liked Oppenheimer. I can get that. I really hated Oppenheimer. I really get that. Same thing with this. People walking out, they're like, I hated Paul. Totally get it.
Yeah.
It's like, I actually thought Paul, all that stuff. It's like, well, you probably kind of missed some details of why you're not supposed to be rooting for Paul. So,
you think about Paul in this way, like burdened with the knowledge of everything that's to come.
Yeah.
It's like a rival. It starts off,
Yeah.
with her, we're kind of seeing it in reverse, So Paul, knowing that he's going to have a son, knowing when he's going to die, how he's going to die, everybody that he knows, Gurney, everybody, his mother, how they're going to, die in the future, but yet he doesn't stray from the path. He just says, "This is the way. This is what I have to do." That there's a lot to that, and that would mess with anybody's head. But Paul is what in this, 16, 17?
Yep.
Holy cow! It's like that is a lot. And of course, he takes it on, and he very easily could have just said, "No, I'm not going to do that." But he also sees like the long game of it. This is what I have to do, so he does it. So. Give him a little bit of a break, but at the same time, he was a real piece of work in this one for sure.
Yeah, and then like even in the first one, they talked about a true leader never seeks to lead. Like Duke Leto gave him the speech to him.
Yeah,
and in this one, it was like that kind of does come into play. He doesn't seek to lead, but because he doesn't want to play this part, and he's pushing, he's like they should be led by their own people. Because you can see Paul. In scenes does not want to do this. He was like, this is terrible what we're doing, all that stuff. So basically he never seeks to lead, but it's like a terrifying destiny that always calls to him through the entire film.
Yeah.
And everybody's pushing him to his mother, his sister. It's like and even he tells the Fremen, he's like, we need to go south. He's like, I can't go south. He was like, I know what's going to happen if I go south. And he's like, but the survival of his family, humanity at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like that now, but following this path, the better for humanity and all that stuff. It's just like, it's a terrifying path. And, of course, a terrifying destiny that's just haunting him throughout this entire film.
Well, the concept of fate for Paul, because at this point, honestly, there's nothing he can do that won't lead him to where he's going to end up. I mean, like, even actively saying, like, I'm not going to do that, I don't think it would matter. It would still lead him to where he ends up. So fate is a fickle thing when you look at it from perspective of somebody that can see all.
Yep.
Because at some point, whether you, well, like with some of the visions, of Chani and then Jameis, we know things have already changed.
Yep.
They changed right away for
Yep.
Paul. Like he killed Jameis. He's
Yep.
not seeing him in like he did in his visions, and Chani doesn't kill him.
Yep.
Like we've seen in visions. So once he gets to final foresight by drinking the water of life, everything's in focus. Like
Yep.
he says there, he can see clearly now exactly what's going to happen. But before then, we're seeing visions that just don't come to pass, and I'm assuming that that's because it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Whatever he does, whether he kills Jameis or a different Fremen or whatever at that point, whoever happens to be in his path at that time, or whoever stepped up to Stilgar and was like, I'll fight him. It could have been any one of them. It could have been Chani, that does it, but it isn't. And Paul is slated. He is stuck to this fate that's coming for him anyway. So it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, and like I said, that was such a cool thing too, because you like you said, he's getting sprinkles of different paths that he took,
Yeah.
just like in the first film.
Yeah.
You talked about like when he got stabbed by Cheney, it's like, don't take that path. So
Yeah,
all that
that's
stuff.
what he's doing. Yeah,
And then that Jameis kills him in the fight and all that stuff. It's just like, don't take that path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought it was really cool just hearing it in the book and then seeing it on screen. Just there's a little extra, just like, that's just cool.
Yeah.
But talking about in the first film, he talks about a holy war spread across the galaxy like an unquenchable fire.
Yeah.
The Atreides banner waving and all that stuff. And then he talks about, everybody bowing down to the shrine of my father's skull. And we've seen it in the film.
Got to see it, which is neat. And what I thought was cool about that scene was the painting underneath it, because we know they were all destroyed.
Yeah.
So what happened was someone, Paul maybe, painted this image of his father to go on this shrine. So I was just like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't great, it's a good approximation of what Oscar Isaac looked like as Leto, but it's just interesting that they went through the trouble to do that. Well, first of all, they got the skull, whether it was his skull or not.
Yeah.
We don't know. It could have been any skull that they said was his, but the painting I thought was really cool, because you watch them destroy all of their effects.
Yeah.
The Harkonnens, they destroyed everything. I'm assuming the bodies and of him and everything too, or left them to the desert.
Yep.
Like they did with the the Baron. But that was I love that scene. It was so quick, but it was it was an impactful scene.
And that's a really cool too, because that does come into play in Dune Messiah. Is that shrine does actually exist and all that stuff. So
Very cool.
So it was really cool to see those glimpses of the future
some of
and
the
stuff
future
like
already.
that. And then before we get into my favorite character of the movie and stuff like that, once again, it was a two-way tie because Paul, Timothy Chalamet, and then we'll get to my other character. But before we do that, I want to talk about another character I didn't put in my notes. I don't know why I didn't, just, trying to get everything put together. But it was Javier Bardem as Stilgar.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly thought he was brilliant in this film.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, I like Stilgar in the book, but he seemed like a little unapproachable Stonewall kind of thing. But in this one, he just felt like a regular guy, and also Javier Bardem's a masterclass actor. So, but it was he was a comic relief for sure in some scenes, and then also
maybe not on purpose, but he was,
and just a genuine good dude, and like a very honorable dude, and then also at the same time it was very heartbreaking to watch his character because how much all that stuff. But I'll let you take it away. But
you're absolutely right. It's just he went from the first one. You imagine the first time we get to see Stilgar in Dune 1. He walks into the little meeting room with everybody, and he has this gravitas, because he's Javier Bardem, but Stilgar does as well. He's got this Fremen attire, he's got his cape flowing, he's got his head covered, and comes in, and they're trying to make him stop, so many feet back from the Duke, and he just keeps on coming, and they're pulling their weapons, and he just does not give a crap at all. He's just like, nope, I'm coming up, and that's such a great scene with him. To go from that to basically, almost a lackey of Paul's, who's just like, followed him along like a lost puppy because he believes he is the Messiah, to finding every excuse possible to tailor what they've heard from the Bene Gesserit about who the Messiah is and what signs are going to point to him being it, that he just sees these signs in anything and everything. And like you're saying, some of the comic relief was just, no matter what Paul tried to do, it just did not matter. It's like, Paul just stands up and says, "Hey, everybody, I am not your Messiah. I'm just a dude, and I'm here just trying to avenge my father's death and the fall of our house." And then the cutscene is Stilgar talking to other Fremen and saying like, "Oh, he's so humble. He won't even admit that he's the Messiah, And if anyone listening knows is religious or knows people who are religious, things like that are very true, and they rang very true to what we're seeing, here, with everybody. So it's just it's very interesting. There are several scenes like that, but that one stands out the most because it's just such a contrast from the Stilgar we see in Dune 1 to this one. But not that he's not a great character, and he's a fighter in this. He does some great scenes. Where he gets bloodied and is fighting for Paul. But it makes it even sadder, because we know he's doing it because he feels like he is protecting this guy who's going to, turn this place into a green paradise and take care of the Fremen people. So it makes it a little sadder knowing that Paul doesn't even believe it.
And well, it's just like in the centuries of belief by the Fremen and stuff like that, and they talk about the Southerners. You couldn't tell by his accent and all that stuff. So
I thought that was
just
funny.
like, and he's just so and it's terrifying the actions people take just to they'll kill for their God. And it's just like it's very terrifying in the movie, and then it's just heartbreaking how much he just believes in Paul, that he is this Messiah that he's been waiting his entire life for, his ancestors have been waiting for, all that stuff. Because even when they attack the Sietch and he's, injured, he's even telling Paul, he's like, "I'm an easy kill." He's like, "Take my place," and all that stuff. And he was like, I don't believe. He's like, "I don't care what you believe, I believe," and all that stuff. So it's just, oh my God, it's like, I remember him as like the underrated MVP of the film. And I thought he was just phenomenal, Stilgar. And once again, everybody's like, well, he really wasn't like BA and badass like he is in the book. And I'm like, dude, do we all forget about the opening scene?
Not?
Like he's the lead. Like, you think they're just putting some chum in the leader of the Fremen group? I'm like, Stilgar is a bad dude. It just like so. But yeah, I remember Dan, man, I was blown away by him in this film, and I wanted to give an extra shout out to him because I thought he was phenomenal. And and then the one thing, real quick, I actually accidentally skipped over that. One of the people I wanted to talk about real quick, it was just a little thing in my notes, was Dave Bautista as Beast Brabant. I seen a lot of people like talking about, and once again, I should have reread the book because that's how I remembered him. And I've read the book multiple times, so this is just how I took him. So when he was cinematically put on screen, I was like, yeah, that's the Beast Brabant I remember from the book. And maybe I'm wrong. Once again, correct me if I am. But I'll go back and read the book, and maybe I'll mess up and I'll make a post like, oh, I was wrong. So anyways, but in the book, he always felt like an unhinged ball of muscle. That's all he felt like to me in the book.
100%.
And even the Baron in the book even knows that too, because he's like, I'm going to put him in the leader position because I know he's going to do a bad job and look over Arrakis so I can set up Fade to be like the savior that comes in. And everybody's like, oh. And even he tells him, he tells him in the book, and he words it in the movie that this morning Fade was a playboy, and now he's a hero and all that stuff. So everybody was like, "Well, they done Beast Brabant dirty and all that stuff in the movie," and I'm like, "That's how he was in the book." And then I thought it was like even extra. They did a couple extra things with him that I thought was upgrade from the book. Me personally is I thought it was a great way to show when he says Muad'Dib dies today, gets on the ornithopters,
Yeah.
flies over there, and it just the terrifying presence of this Muad'Dib, and you can see the rise
Oh, man.
of this
Yeah.
Fremen thing, like, and then he just turns and runs tail. I'm like,
Yeah, he
I'm
was-
like, I
was
love
out of
that. And once again, like I said, it shows the fear and it supports the Paul character and the Muad'Dib and what they're establishing and stuff like that, and why it would get all the way back to the Emperor that that we got this Muad'Dib leader and all that stuff. So I thought that was a very cool upgrade. And then of course I said Frank Herbert's novel
Would've been
is
so
an
nice.
absolute masterpiece. It
Exactly.
is, but the one change I wanted from the book was for Gurney Halleck to get his revenge.
Yep.
Because in the book,
Agreed.
Beast Raban gets beheaded by the Fremen.
Yeah, it's just off.
Yeah,
I would
off
say
book.
off camera,
Yeah,
off
yeah.
screen, but it's in a book. But yeah, that was definitely one of the very few points where it would just it makes no it doesn't work for Chad.
Yeah.
I want to see it. I want
Yeah.
to hear about it. I want to see Gurney Halleck do it, and to be able to see Josh Brolin do what he does, and he was another probably underrated performance. You don't get to see a lot of him, of course. It happens in the last third of the movie, but when he is on screen, his interactions with Chani, and then of course being able to kill the Beast Raban, it was very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to have seen like a little more like knife play before he does it, but he just walks up to him and just
Yep.
just takes him out, which is great.
Yeah. And then I mean, when he comes up too, and I thought it was a very powerful line from, but once again, Josh Brolin's a masterclass actor,
Yeah.
so that's the reason why it came off so great too. He
course.
stabs him right in the neck,
Simple.
and he's like, "For my Duke,
Yeah.
and for my friends." It's like instead of like saying my comrades or for my,
Yeah.
my soldiers, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He says my friends because
Yeah.
it shows you the connection that the Atreides and all that stuff has, and it could come off super cheesy, but Josh Brolin just nails it. And
Yeah.
like I said, him getting his revenge on Beast Raban, I thought was a great upgrade for the film. And I was like, and once again, a lot of people are like, I wish the battle was a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, well, in the book, he got beheaded off screen. We didn't see anything, so at least we got to see something, some glimpse.
And at that point, I think, at least from the Beast Raban's character, he just dumbfounded.
Yeah,
He says it when he comes up. He's like, "Oh, look who rose from the dead."
Yeah.
And Gurney just walks up to him. And just, but I think he was more surprised than anything. Like, hey, all this stuff is happening. Like you said, he's already turned tail and ran. He gets stopped right before he gets on the ornithopter. He turns around and sees this guy that he thought was dead, and he just walks up to him and just jabs him in the neck, and he's dead. And he says his line. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of it may have just been confusion on his part, and just the sheer fact is like what is happening. I think he pretty much felt like House Harkonnen was pretty much invincible.
yeah,
And himself, especially being as big and strong as he was, he's never had a real challenge, and then now he's seeing that other things have come to pass, and
Yeah.
it's not his time anymore.
yeah. Oh, I thought it was a little extra goosebumpy too when Josh Brolin walks up and he's got the Fremen army behind him, and then they all stop and they
Yeah,
just let
yeah.
him keep
So
walking.
good.
He's like,
Yeah.
basically like, "Hey man, we know you want this, so here you go." And it's
all
like,
you.
all you, man, take it away, and all that stuff. So I just love that. And then of course, the other character I want to talk about was Josh Brolin. That's like he was very once again very underrated.
Yeah.
I thought he was great in this film. And then of course one of my favorite absolute moments in the book was the reuniting of Paul and Josh
Yeah,
Brolin.
young pup.
He's like, "I recognize your footsteps, old man." And then
Yeah. Did it
he's like,
great
"You
on
young
that.
pup," and all that stuff, because that was one of my favorite parts from the book. So I love just seeing that on screen and
Very well done.
all that stuff. But
And by
yeah,
then, Paul, he was pretty battle damaged, and his blue eyes are shining through the little slit in the
Yep.
in his face coverings, and he's wearing Josh Brolin's character, Gurney. At that point, he's wearing like a Sardaukar armor and stuff. And
Yep.
it's like, oh my gosh,
the smuggler.
what's going
Yeah.
on? But it was a great scene, and all their interactions were very good, and I could have used more of him, but they did a good job with everybody. You can't fit everybody on screen 24 hours a day, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and then I think that's all I care. But I just want to say too is like the overall before I get into my my final character.
Yeah.
But everybody overall in the cast too. Like I said, I've never had two films so close together that I felt the love from every single person on set, because I said the same thing about Oppenheimer from last year, was you can feel the dedication and the heart and everything poured into every single actor.
Yeah.
Is just giving their all, and that's just an extra respect to the director and the filmmaker they're working with.
Sure,
And
yeah.
also just just extra special to see that, and I just feel that in Dune Part 2 as well. Like, and I really liked Chani's friend. I thought she did really well.
Yeah.
It's just
very
like
cool.
I just like I said, you felt it from everybody
Yeah.
and everybody involved. It just like seemed like everybody was having a blast, and and then watching the interviews leading up to Doom
That's what I was
Part
gonna
2,
say, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like they seem like one big happy family. So
And everybody loves Denis. They would do whatever he said. So,
Yeah.
you can definitely tell that he had a good crew, and that they wanted to do a good film.
Yeah.
That was really true to his vision of what he saw for Dune Part 2.
Yeah, and I don't know, like maybe I can't word it, but like it just seemed like everybody was like, "This is Denis Villeneuve, and I'm doing everything I can to perfectly get his vision as possible."
That's it.
And you felt that from everybody, so it's just really rad to see all that stuff. But
No, you're right.
the final character I wanted to talk about, of course, was my two-way tie was Paul, and then in some cases I just think a little out there, and absolutely blew me away, because I talked about for years. I had fan castings. I actually had Barry Keoghan. It was my fan cast to play this character, and then I found out that Austin Butler was cast as Fade Routha.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I hadn't seen Elvis at the time.
So, guys being Elvis.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And once again, I forget the casting director's name, but she's incredible. And I was like, if she believes that he's going to be a good Fade, I believe her.
wild.
All that stuff. And if Denny feels like this is going to be a good pick, I believe him and stuff like that. So at first, I was very cautious because I'm like, I haven't seen much from Butler.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember of Butler was from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he was like,
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
devil, and all that stuff. Like it's just a little scene
Yeah.
when he plays Tex in there, but,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But I'm like, okay, let's see what this guy's got. And I see him in Elvis, and he's incredible in Elvis.
Yeah, of course.
I have my problems with Elvis, but definitely one of the problems is definitely not Austin Butler's performance, because he's incredible as
Yeah.
Elvis. But I was like, okay, and they got an Oscar nomination, and honestly, love Brandon Fraser. I kind of feel like Austin Butler or Colin Farrell probably should have won the Oscar that year. But that's just me. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
But
Poor Brandon.
but it was I was just like, okay, let's see what this guy's got, and let me tell you, he was awesome. I thought he was incredible.
Oh yeah, he was awesome visually, because he did the fully shaved head and eyebrows and stuff, and just the opening shot of him. They come in and it's like this. So I IMAXed it, so we got him 40 foot tall on the screen, and it's just this kind of this opening thing where it goes from light to dark, and he just appears there, and just visually just very striking looking guy on screen. And then we get to see it from from Giddy Prime when he's going into the arena to fight the three slaves that they have there for their entertainment, and it goes to the black and white, the infrared shooting of it, and it's just, man, it's hard to describe. I mean, everyone's probably seen the trailer and they've seen little bits and pieces of it, but it is so hard to describe exactly what you're seeing on screen with this black and white version of it. It's not like old school black and white. It is this weird, like, unsettling black and white landscape thing. It's just so strange, but it's so good at the same time, and so we get to see him starting off there. First thing he's doing, well, I mean, he's in his little room, talking with his his preppers or whatever, but him in the arena was really cool. And he's got the blackness in his mouth that creates like this hole when he's screaming as he's fighting these other participants, and it's just wild. But then that's not the best part of him, though. Him, when you hear him speak for the first time, and he sounds exactly like the Baron
Yeah.
It's a testament to Austin on that, because I honestly I'd forgot that he had done that. When we were started watching it, and I was just kind of in the moment, and then he spoke, and I realized like the Baron isn't in this scene.
Yeah.
Because he was off screen when he said something, and they turned to him. I'm like, holy cow! And he just it was so good. I couldn't believe it. And then throughout the movie, he does it, of course, but and it just each time it just super jarring. Hearing his voice like that, and it not being the Baron, but it just, like I said, it was just a testament to him that he wanted to do that, and that was I think that was a strictly Austin Butler thing where he said, I want to sound like Skarsgård,
Yep.
just to kind of show that family thing, and then you look at Raban,
Yep.
he wasn't doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not nothing against Dave Bautista, he did a great job, and he didn't think that through. But it just shows like their connection more like,
Yeah.
I want to be more like the Baron, and Raban is more, I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to murder everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that was like in the one little detail that they changed in this too was that Fade Ralph, I dug it. Fade Ralph seems a little bit more honorable. Like he really looks up to his uncle and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
different.
they also sprinkle stuff in there from the book that the Harkonnen they'll backstab each other every second they get.
Right.
In the book, obviously they didn't do it on screen, but in the book, Baron Harkonnen was a child molester,
Yeah,
or whatever, and even Fade put a way to assassinate him, put like that poison stinger in there,
in that kid.
Yeah. So all that stuff. So they're always trying to kill each other and get to the throne. So don't get that twisted. And then I loved it. And once again, another character that wasn't in this film was Howitt. Hawat or Howitt. I always birch it. Thufius Howitt. I think they say so.
Howitt. Yeah, Howitt.
Is the Mentat of the Atreides family.
Yeah.
In the book, it was actually him that gets taken in by the Baron Harkonnen once the fall of House Atreides and Arrakeen.
Yeah,
and
he
gets
loses
taken
his
in.
Mentat.
Yep.
And he said, I need a Mentat.
Yeah, Piter died.
Yeah,
He's
Piter
like,
died.
Yeah.
In that throne room scene.
And he was like, I need a Mentat. How I am without a Mentat and all that stuff. So,
exactly.
But he was completely cut out of this cinematic adaptation or whatever. So that was a little heartbreaking. But I shouldn't say a little. It was heartbreaking because I really enjoyed Thufius Howitt in the book and stuff that. So, but unfortunately, the cinematic adaptations and run times and things like that, his character was cut. But in the book, when he gets taken in, he's actually poisoned by the Baron Harkonnen.
Right.
And they
supplying him with
the antidote in his food.
Yeah.
So, and then he's actually the one that doesn't drug the slave.
Yeah.
So, but in this
they
book,
had to change it.
But I think they did a really good job working with what they had to do. So we no longer have Thufius Howitt, so we need to change this a little bit. So what they did, they had Baron be the one that did not have the slave poisoned.
Which tracks.
Yeah, which tracks.
Which is funny because it 100% makes sense that the Baron on what ended up being Fade's birthday celebration would not drug at least one of the... And what's interesting too is if you look at the three that came out, it was like the oldest, scrawniest one that he didn't drug.
Yep.
So it's like, is he really trying to get him killed or just enough to show him, hey, I could do this anytime I wanted to. I could have you killed.
Yep.
Because one of the participants in this battle was a monster, a huge guy, beastly guy that, could have probably overpowered him. But he went with the smaller, more experienced, like soldier guy, which we saw in Dune, the first one, at the table when Stilgar came in.
Yep. It was like his left hand man.
Yeah. A good soldier, obviously.
Yeah, and then funny thing about that, I put somewhere in my notes. I gotta find it real quick, but it was funny because what is that dude's name? It's driving me nuts. Roger Yan, that's his name. Roger Yan was the warrior that wasn't poisoned in there. And a fun fact, he's actually the fight choreographer and the weapons choreographer for the film. So it was really cool to see Austin Butler, the guy that trained you, is actually the warrior you're fighting against. So it even made it a little bit smoother because that guy knows his stuff.
Oh yeah.
So he made Austin Butler just look great and all that stuff. And even Butler's gave him praise to him too. He's like, yeah, he made me look awesome. So it just so that was really cool that they did that. But But as far as like I said, plans within plans and all that stuff they were talking about, and Lady Fennering and all that stuff. But staying on the subject of Butler, like I said, I think he was like viciously badass as Fade Routha, like he was in the book, and he's like Butler's completely all in, and you've already got it in two before. It's like you could tell the combat training. He looked so smooth with that he actually put in there. His voice was like very hair raising. You already got to it.
Insane.
It matches the accent of the Baron Harkonnen, so I thought that was really cool. And basically, he effortlessly walks around almost like a snake. Like you can see him like swaying
definitely.
back and forth in his manner when he walks, and he just actually just has that effortlessly demonic nature that Fade Routh is supposed to have to himself.
Yeah.
And especially. And I said it too. I had to think about it for a little while. Let me sit on it a little bit and see what happens. But honestly, it's got to be like one of the best introductions to the villain I've ever seen.
Definitely.
Like you get this guy,
Without a
he gets his blades presented to him before he goes out for his gladiator birthday. Ends up slicing the one chick's neck.
First thing he does,
and just starts trying to check the sharpness of the blade. He starts stabbing the chick to see how sharp it is. I'm like, good lord.
Tells his blade master, like, this tip isn't sharp enough.
Yeah, it isn't sharp enough. I'm like, good lord. And then I thought it was a little extra thing that Austin Butler did. It wasn't in the script, but when he comes up and he tests the blade, he sticks his tongue out. Yeah. And there's just something a little just eerie about that. And he's like touching the tip of the blade and it's not cutting his tongue, and he's like, yeah, this isn't sharp enough or whatever. So it was nuts. And then, him coming out, Roger Yan ends up getting the upper hand on him in the battle, and he has the knife to his face, and you can just see drool and stuff, and he's laughing, and it's just like, it was nuts. I thought it was like a mix between, not in the level, because Heath Ledger as the Joker is the GOAT, all that stuff, but even it gave me shades of The Dark Knight when, of course, when Heath Ledger's getting the crap beat out of him, he's just laughing demonically. Yeah. And he's got a knife and a blade to his face, and he's just sitting there laughing about it. Yeah. And then also a little bit of, I forget the character's name, but Gary Oldman from Leon the Professional. Just unhinged kind of, craziness to him. So I thought that was really cool. But like I said, he really does go all in on the character. I was just blown away. Like I said, I didn't doubt that Austin Butler could play it, because once again, I trusted in Denis Villeneuve and then making the casting. Yeah. But I was like, I really hope he blows me away. And that's exactly what he did. And now I can't think of anybody else to play Fade, because I'm just like, he just killed it so much.
It makes Sting's portrayal of him just so campy at this point, because Austin Butler has this like reserved insanity about him. Yeah. Where like you were saying, how his movements are very purposeful all the time. Like he's super smooth. I mean, like crazy smooth dude. But do you think about like Sting coming out and just being all, his eyes are all open and he's acting all crazy with his hair and everything, and then you see this version of it, it's like, that is so much more terrifying than a guy just coming out being like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to slice you out, I want to do all this stuff. The dude who doesn't say it, that's the one that you got to worry about. And at one point, just because I was thinking about it when you said it, when the guy that presented his blades to him reminded me so much of the Rancor Keeper from Return of the Jedi. I just thought it was funny because he's got like that half shirt on. He's got like this thing on his head, but I thought the Rancor Keeper guy was funny. And then he was sweating when he was testing the blades out. He knew that he was probably
you see him like shivering a little bit.
He's in trouble. But one thing they didn't comment on was, and what the book talks about, is the different colors of the blades and why they're different colors. So they didn't touch on that at all, about one blade being poisoned and one blade not being poisoned. Yep. And that's okay. I mean, they say you can't fit everything in there, and at that point, it doesn't matter what blade you get stabbed with. You know what I mean? Yep. You're going to die.
You're going to stab the blade.
A poison blade. You're going to die, whether it's for poison or just from being stabbed. But that was a great scene. Him immediately turning and slicing that girl's throat, and then he has his little girl buddies in his room there too, that he's like feeding these people to, basically. So I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully we'll find out more. as we move forward.
Yeah, it's like, and then that's why I'm really curious about when I finally get the steelbook and all that stuff, because I wanna see the makeup design and all that stuff they went into. Because like I said, I think the design from the first one and going into the second one is the Harkonnens are redheads. And it's like they're gingers and all that stuff, and then the decision and using, and then you see the black sun of the planet. You're like, oh, because they're not getting anything from the sun. It's just like this negative, and I'm like, oh, that's like why. That's why they're so pale. Yeah. And I don't know if that had to do with anything, but there was a detail when the Baron is flying off for the first time, and he's saying, today Muad'Dib dies or whatever, and they're flying. One of the crew member in the back start throwing up when the sun hits them.
It's the sun, yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if it's like because it's an actual sun instead of the black sun.
The vitamin D of the real of an actual.
And it started like making them throw up and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah.
Because like you can see Beast Ravan, he's like wincing at it and he's like squinting really a lot, and then the pilot immediately the visor comes down.
Yeah.
As soon as he says open the blinds. That's what he does. So, it was, it's a good scene. And the fact that they do those little detail things, knowing that these guys are coming from this black sun to this real sun. Yeah. It was very cool. The throwing up one, I was just like, oh man, it's got to be jarring. Like super jarring. Yeah. They open those up. Boom.
Yeah. And then on the subject about the black teeth, I never got a clear answer. I got recommendations to articles, and I really I forget the guy's name, but somebody sent me an article about it, and I was like, yeah, that could possibly be it as well. But somebody sent me I always assumed when I watched it that the black teeth was on about the girls were cannibals, because he's like, the liver, I'll get you a liver, blah, blah. So obviously points out that they're, cannibals. And then later in the film, when he slices that one dude's throat, he's like, take him back to my quarters because my girls are hungry. They're starving. And I'm like, oh, they're cannibals. So I always took it as like, maybe it was blood that stained the teeth or something like that. But also somebody sent me an article, which would make sense, but, and I'll disprove why it didn't make sense here in a second. But they said it was like very ceremonial in some cultures to like dye their teeth and like during like coming of an age or something like that. Yeah. So it made sense that it was his birthday, so they would have that
ceremony.
some ceremonial thing. But the girls also had black teeth. So I thought that was kind of odd. So
they were all joining in.
Yeah, maybe that kind of So maybe that kind of disproves that. But I was just like, it's very interesting. That's once again, like I said, I'll hopefully have a more clear, straightforward answer when we have the special features and stuff come out. But yeah, that's as far as the characters and stuff and the actors and stuff. Like once again, I can't say enough that once again, I felt that everybody was so dedicated. To what Villeneuve's vision was and stuff.
You had to be with the movie like that, with the environments that they had to shoot in and everything. If you weren't 100% into it, it would show on screen so bad that you just wouldn't be able to watch it.
And then once again, like I said, I'm going my little notes here. We got the adapted screenplay. Once again, shout out to Denis Villeneuve and John. I think it's Spates is how you say his name, but I think they did an astonishing job taking Frank Herbert's novel, and there's so much world building, political drama. There's individual character growth that grows in this, internal conflicts that you have to tackle, and I thought how they smashed that into one screenplay was incredibly impressive. And like I said, I'll be shocked if we find another better adapted screenplay this year, because everything they had to juggle with, they just did a phenomenal job with it. And once again, I know that they cut stuff out. I know characters were cut and stuff like that. Another character that I forgot to mention that was cut was Count Fennering. Yeah. It was only Lady Fennering that was in the film. Briefly. Played by Leia Sedukes. I think it's Sedukes or Sadu, or however you say it. But anyways, I thought she did an incredible job too. That's another one that was underrated. It was she's only in there for a glimpse second, but she does an incredible job, and she does her job as a Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, maybe 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
but she's such a great actress too, though.
Yeah, and then I thought she did an incredible job. But Count Fennery was cut, and I understand that and stuff. But
Yeah.
with the adapted screenplay by them, they still got to the soul and elements
definitely.
and nailed everything that makes Frank Herbert's novel so special. And there's going to be deviations. Like I said, we've talked about it before. There's deviations from Harry Potter. There's deviations from Lord of the Rings. There's deviations from comic books that are adapted. We've seen so many times.
Twilight.
Yeah, it's just like there's so many deviations. So I knew it was going to come along with that, but I still, once again, I said it before. I don't think it's a perfect adaptation, beat for beat from the book, but I think it's a flawless cinematic adaptation.
It'd be hard to capture every little bit, but yeah, I agree. And knowing that the changes they did make, I think were effective in kind of getting you ready for Dune Messiah, because we know that that's going to be that's going to be in development. So
Yeah.
it was good stuff all around. Man, a great movie.
And then before I get to Denis Villeneuve, the little details I wanted to talk about was some of the of course we talked about the costume design. I thought that was incredible. I thought the visuals and just showing the scales of the spice harvester scene. I just thought
so
that
good.
whole sequence where they're trying to shoot down the ornithopter, and I just thought it was incredible, especially Paul once again leaking through that his intelligence and combat, because he's been trained by Gurney Halleck, he's been trained by Thuthu Howard,
His father.
his father, he's been trained by Duncan Idaho. It's like all that stuff.
Duncan.
It just kind of comes to the surface out of action that he's adapted to do this stuff. And even if he's 15, or now he's like 16, 17.
Yeah, 16, 17.
And he's adapted to this. And also you see the Fremen too, because how they've adapted to the desert. We talked about in the opening scene, it picks up right after, the battle between Jameis and Paul. They extract the water.
They're pulling they're dragging his body back to the siege.
Yep.
I mean, it's exactly right after it. Yeah.
And how they extract water, and how there's thousands of sea edges underground and have all this water and stuff like that. And it was also ceremonial and chilling, because even how Jessica says, she's like so many souls, and how many people have died and stuff like that, and how precious water is on this planet.
Because Stilgar said that no matter how thirsty they were, they'd all be dying of thirst. No one would ever drink from that water, even though it wasn't the water of life. It was just the water from all the Fremen and that had passed. So to think of how much water that is, and Jessica saying so many souls. Yeah, and it was great, and just technically them sucking the water out was very cool, and then seeing them do it to some of the Harkonnen, and the way they had their little mechanisms to do it was cool. As a guy who loves mechanical things, it was very cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
that's
then,
neat.
well, they were even talking about too. It's like even for their, it looked like it was like capsule rounds for Stilgar's water pistol, and then also they were just like, hey, this is dirty water, but he was like, it's good for the cooling system or whatever. So
They would never drink a
yeah,
Harkonnen.
It's like, but yeah, they use it. That's how precious water is. It's basically desert power, what they talk about. So
every drop matters, whether it's in your cooling system or you're drinking it or whatever. They're going to take it and they're going to utilize it in whatever way they need to.
Yeah, and even in the book too, they talked about how they had mildew collectors, so they would come out in the morning and get in the mildew and all that stuff. So every single drop is precious, and even when Jessica sheds a tear, he comes over and wipes it away, and he actually takes it right off his thumb. He was like, you don't even give your water to the dead. So that's how the water discipline I thought was pretty incredible.
One drop of water is important.
Yeah, and even when Jessica throws up, he's like, don't let it out. Don't let it out, and she does. And
That was
he's
a funny
like,
scene.
Yeah,
You could tell it was like, it hurt him.
Yeah, he was like, oh God. He's like,
what are you doing?
So, and then just breaking down little details, we got to the harvesters. I love that they brought the ornithopters back, even though it was piloted by Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Those ornithopters, man, that's probably got to be my favorite sci-fi ship. I know we got the Millennium Falcon and all that stuff. It's just like there's so many ships that are iconic, and man, just something about those ornithopters and just seeing them like that, hearing them in the book. And I'm like, I really want them to nail that in the movie, and they did. And even they made a 1:1 scale ornithopter on set. Now, granted, it can't fly, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Now they were so well done. All the designs in there. It goes back to the just the production design for the movies, just like everything was, and it changed, like you said about the Hark and the Harvester being so different than the ones that were left on Arrakis for the Atreides.
Yep.
And the designs of them are so cool and just so polished looking. Just kudos to the team that came up with all the different designs for the new things that we get to see, which every sci-fi fan loves to see, new things coming into the world. So it was very cool.
Yeah, and then I loved the little details of because I always wondered in the first film, I'm like, if the Fremen are underground, how are they breathing?
Yeah.
And all that stuff, because I think it's like one of the coolest things that they pop up out of the ground.
Yeah.
And it's really terrifying because back to the Josh Brolin scene, he just whips out his sword and starts walking to nothing in the field because he even knows they're out there.
Yeah.
And he just once again the warrior side of Gurney, he's like, well, I'm gonna die, so here we go. And he's not going down without a fight.
40
and
dudes.
You just they just come out of the ground. I'm like, oh, that is terrifying.
But he didn't stop.
Nope, it's just Gurney, man.
Keep on walking.
Yep. So they pop up out of the ground, but they actually have a little breathing little tube capsule.
Like a snorkel.
Yeah. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and we got
had
another
a filter on it.
Yeah.
That was really cool. That design of that was really neat. You get to zoom in on it where you see this filter, these bellows kind of opening and closing as they're breathing. I was like, holy crap, what a brilliant idea, because if they're in a sandstorm or something and they're trying to hide from whoever, they would choke to death before they ever had a chance to surprise anybody. It's like, man, they're so well adapted for the environment, in their designs. It was very cool.
Yeah, and then so when they pop out of the ground, they attack the harvester and all that stuff. And the one little detail that Denny does very well, and like it sets up tension, and also during an action scene, a little extra special is it's through the point of view scope of the gunman. Is it follows Paul because he's the distraction, and then when it comes back to Zendaya, you can see that she's lowering her rocket launcher. I'm like, oh crap, did she miss? And then he looks to the left, and it's like, wow, and it just explodes it. And the genius sound design, the decision to do it, you can hear Chani running, and she's laughing, and it's just she's giggling, and it's just like, and it's
we just did that.
It's kind of heartbreaking too, because this is Fremen life, this is survival. That's all they know, and. So when they do this, you can hear her giggling as she's running, and it's nothing. You don't hear any sound.
Yeah.
And it's just her running and her footsteps. And then all of a sudden, in the background, the ornithopter just comes down and crashes.
Beautiful. I don't know if that was a practical effect because it looked it, but if it was CG, man, they nailed it.
Yeah.
But I hope it was practical because it looked really, really good.
It was, but yeah, just like I said, I can't say enough. Once again, it's another. Credit to the visual effects, all that stuff. Like, I love the design of the ships, bringing back the ornithopters because I love them so much. That might be a little biased on my part, and they had that the formation, how he shoots the ornithopters is very like Apocalypse Now.
Oh, definitely.
Like how he does it, and I just love everything about that because it actually feels like a war movie.
Oh, he definitely drew influence from that. I mean, we've seen that in some of the visuals with the Baron. We've seen him do some Apocalypse Now kind of things, where he's rubbing his bald head to coming up out of his tank and kind of looking like he's coming up out of the, out of the river, like in Apocalypse Now. And so these great directors, they draw on these other great films and visuals of these films for the nostalgia of it, So folks that are students of it see it and think, oh, that's pretty cool, and it kind of goes. Goes from there, but there's definitely some great influences. And if you're gonna do a war movie, which this is in essence, then of course you're gonna look back at some of those great movies like that, Apocalypse Now or Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, for some of those shots.
Yeah, and and then that's like I really, as far as like designs and everything, I really dug. We got a glimpse of it. It wasn't as chrome and polished it was, but we kind of got like a glimpse of those ships in the first Dune. But the Emperor ship is just kind of designed a little different. It's like a sphere, and like it's like almost looks like chrome. And you can see the reflection of the cities.
Yeah, it was when it came into the city, like you said, kind of flew in. you can see the reflections of everything. And I think if you look at the harvester, the Harkonnen harvester, I think it was chrome at one point.
Yeah.
You know, you could see that it's been beaten down by the sands of Dune, of Arrakis. And I think the Emperor's ship is just a contrast to that, saying, like, he doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't work.
Yeah.
The Harkonnen, whether they're horrible people, which they are, they're still doing it. They're there, they're harvesting, they're trying to provide the spice for everyone, for the travel and all that. But the Emperor, he doesn't get his hands dirty. He doesn't got to do anything.
Yeah, and part of it too was like it was so big that I don't know if that established that. Maybe there could possibly have been separate ships too.
Yeah.
But one of the Fremen say like he brought his whole army with
Yeah.
him. Like, were they all on that ship like stored in there with him?
So, but
I don't think so either. But I'm like, that'd be pretty cool to show that, because we see in the first film when the Space Guild navigators and the Bene Gesserit and all that stuff, it's just this little hangar that opens up, and just the massive scale of this thing. It's like you could fit an army on that thing if you wanted to.
Sure.
So it just made me wonder with the Emperor ship, like, did he bring the whole army in there? All that? So I'll have to see if that's a detail. And
I would assume that he'd have his own private ship.
Yeah.
Even though it was enormous.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's like, oh no, I'm not gonna fly with
That's
with
fly
these
your
guys.
butts over there yourself and all that stuff. And then of course we always geek out about it. You got a little bit about and this will lead into you'll know where I'm leading with this, but we got another glimpse. I love the design of the thumpers. There's that little, they twist it and that little spike comes out the end of it, and then they stick it down in the sand, and then you notice on the edge of it has like little writings. So I would imagine that's probably where you would turn the valve to crank it up, how much or what kind of type of worm that you want to call,
right?
And or a mimics,
big,
mimics, all
big,
that stuff.
Big,
so
bigger thumps,
which leads into the one scene that I really wanted to talk about too, and the designs that they did with this was this Paul's first sandworm ride.
Yeah,
and I love that he goes to the tip of the sand dune, and he hits it, and you don't feel anything, but you go a little bit lower down and you hit some drum sand.
Yeah,
and he's like, sand. That's where you would hit it. So he sticks it down in there, and then of course he calls. Stilgar's like, whoa. He's like, not that big.
Of all the worms, and I liked it in that scene too, because you get to see Chani when she says, go down.
Yeah.
Like she's watching him, and she hears him thump the sand, and she realizes like, oh no, you're not in a good spot, and he knew it right away. So it just goes to show his training on that was spot on.
Yep.
So he knew like, yep, you're right. I'm going to go down. He dug a little bit more, and he called Grandpa Sandworm.
Yeah. And the thing about they talk about, they didn't show how they get off the sandworms, but they showed how they get off. They get on the sandworms. I've always thought that too. Like,
I wondered that.
The only thing I could think in my mind how they get off the sandworms before I get how they got on them was that I would imagine you just take your maker hook. It's got a zip line in it,
right?
So I would imagine you just hook it and then zip line off the edge. That, don't get me wrong, that freaking sandworm's getting it, but
Well, you got to figure too that as soon as they take their hooks out, he's no longer obligated to be above the sand.
Yeah.
So if you take all your hooks out and he just goes down,
descends.
Can he descend slowly enough that you don't get sucked under the sand with it? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see how they get off the sandworm. But on the discussion of how he got on the sandworm, and once again, that's why I love this movie so much, because the heart and the detail that they put into this, just getting on a sandworm is like when he hooks in the maker hooks, and it basically peels back the skin to basically what would be our noses, and basically exposes like a breathing nostril, almost like a whale, like we call it a snorkel or whatever we call that stuff, but a blowhole or whatever. So and you can see that it puts these like protective. It just with the skin, it just folds down, and it protects the nostrils. So basically, when Paul hooks it and exposes these nostrils, it doesn't want to breathe in sand, of course, and spice, so it shifts to to where it actually levels out, and then he hooks the other one, and then how you would steer it, you just pull back on the cable, and it'll steer it and stuff like that. So it was just really, really cool.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't, at first, knowing that he was going to ride the worm this time around, I just didn't know if they would try to get into any kind of detail like that. Anything that would show, like, this is why they do what they do. But when they show that first, scale basically folding back and seeing the nostrils underneath it, you're like, oh, that totally makes sense, because without them being able to breathe sand, they're not going to go down. So they stay on the surface and lets them, gives them the opportunity to actually ride it, instead of just, oh, I'm just going to go down because I got this thing on my back. But now it's like, oh, I can't go down because I won't be able to breathe, and so there's some rhyme and reason to what they're doing, and then obviously pulling on one versus the other, it's pretty cool. And visually it's good. I mean, it's a hard thing to pull off cinematically, and then when you think later on in the movie, when there's multiple ones, they're riding them as basically mass transit to get to the southern hemisphere of Arrakis. It could look pretty weird, could look kind of goofy, but they did a really good job. And then the pod that they had Jessica in to get her traveling was really neat. So she didn't have to rely on trying to get hooks in. They had this little pod that they'd made that gets hooked to it.
Yeah.
When they call in the worm. I was like, man, they've really thought it all through from the Fremen side of things.
Yeah.
They really know what they're doing.
Yeah, and then one little detail that I seen, and I love the differential you'll show is you'll see Paul and you'll see Chaney when they're riding the sandworms. They have a maker hook in each hand, and so they're like steering all that stuff. Now when we see Stilgar has actually got one hand free, and he's holding on both of them. Like, I've done this before, I've done. This is just natural to me. So it just shows the evolution of. Yeah, it's like it's just evolution over time. He's just like, man, I can do this with one hand, all that stuff. So that was a cool little detail.
It was, and I'm assuming that he's just going straight at that point.
Yeah,
knowing like, hey, I'm just going to hold these both with one hand.
Yep.
I don't need to pull one. I'm just going to go straight. And then as soon as he would need to turn, he would switch one to the other hand and he would turn. But Paul, not being as skilled, is probably just scared to death. And first of all, if I try to switch it from one hand to the other and I drop one of them, what do I do? But it was very, very clever. A lot of little neat details like that throughout it. And that may have been a Stilgar thing, or it may have been a Javier Bardem thing, or a Denis Villeneuve thing, where he said, hey, you know what? Stilgar probably would, have one hand free.
Yeah, he's done this for years.
Yeah, he's got like a drink in one hand or a cigar in one hand. And
because you would have to think about like how we drive. You're supposed to do the 10 to 3, 10 to 2, or 10 to 2, whatever. That's your proper. You're taking your driver's test. It's 10 to 2. But then over mine, we're all kicked back. We got one hand on there and all that stuff.
I'm a one-hander. Yep.
So it's just I just thought that was just a really cool detail with the sandworm.
Yeah, very clever.
But and then. So yeah, we got to the sandworm ride and all that stuff. It's just like I said, this is so much great stuff to break down about this movie, and this has been a blast. What we're doing right now, I would love to do a part 2 spoiler talk, because there's so much stuff to break down about the film. But yeah, like I want to make sure I got pretty much everything.
It's hard. It's hard. There's a lot.
Yeah, I was like, I got the sandworms, all that stuff. I know, I'm gonna kind of be all over the place here, but we even talked about with the timeline too, that instead of in the book it was 2 years, so it was 2 years of Paul being with the Fremen and all that stuff,
learning their ways and stuff. Yeah.
But in the movie it's 2 months.
Yeah.
So obviously Alia wasn't born.
Yep.
All that stuff. So we had to wait for that, and that's why I think leading in Dune Messiah, we talked about Leto II in this spoiler talk, that you could possibly have an older Leto II that dies, and Dune Messiah.
Does.
You could use that, or he may not use Leto II at all. He may just go to the other kids.
It's true.
And
it is
just
very
do that.
true.
But and like I said, some of the closing stuff I wanted to say was like the Dune 2 was like the joyful, heart hitting reminder of why you love movies. It's just like, and like given the blockbuster we've had here recently, and I'm not taking shots at specifically, but you know what films I'm talking about is
Yeah.
the movie was made for $190 million budget, and you felt like you've seen $190 million on screen. And compared to some of these blockbusters we have today,
Yeah.
it's like where did that money go? And then
Yeah.
just the extra details of Villeneuve and Greg Fraser working with the visual effects team, that you can actually see Denis Villeneuve's vision through this. Yes, what could I sit there and watch a 4-hour Dune movie? Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
But the regular movie going audience can't, it will not do that. As much as I know that everybody that loves the books, I love the books. It's my favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
I could sit here and watch a 6-hour Dune movie. I could totally do
Not
it.
going anywhere.
But you can't do that. It's
Yeah.
just, at the end of the day, it's a movie business. I understand that some stuff had to be cut to make a runtime.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm very heartbroken that Villeneuve, and hopefully he bends and breaks over this, but he doesn't believe in extended cuts or director's cuts or anything like that. So that's very heartbreaking to hear, because there is deleted scenes. There is, that's the thing about Dune Part 1. There is no deleted scenes on there. And when I got the Blu-ray, I was like, oh wow, he was not joking.
Surely.
Yeah, he was not joking. Once he cuts something from a film, he says it's completely dead. And he said he cut Tim Blake Nelson from the book because they didn't say what his character was, but we
you
can
can guess.
always
Yeah,
probably
you can
guess that
guess,
it's
yeah.
Count Fenring.
That's the only really one that
Yeah.
remained that needed to be addressed at all.
Yeah, so it is probably Count Fenring that he said he was so heartbroken. But at the end of the credits, I know it doesn't make it feel any better, but he did give a special thanks at the end of the credits to Tim Blake Nelson, and then the guy that played Thufir
very, very neat.
how you say his name? I mean, I always
because
butcher
he had
his name.
scenes that they
Yep,
filmed.
They filmed.
And they just didn't put
Yep.
them in, yeah.
And
you think that in the end they actually had him become the Mentat 4?
I think that's exactly
cool.
what happened. So
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
great.
it's like so it does suck. Like I said, Leto the Second, the baby isn't in there. I don't know if just killing a baby would be too brutal on screen. And then also what was the other one? Count Fenrir was cut. Leto the Second. There was no connection to Liet Kynes being Cheney's mom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, it happens. There's deviations from the book that's going to happen in the adaptation. I know it's heartbreaking as a book reader. All that stuff. But honestly, I still, with that all out of the way, I think Villeneuve and them did a flawless movie adaptation. And like I said, you're going to have with Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, comic books, video games. There's always going to be those deviation adaptations, but I thought they did a really good job.
If you come into it completely, unaware of the books, and you come in to watch it, I dare you to try to find something where you thought like, this wasn't the perfect version of this. So just come into it, dumb about the books, and you're going to really enjoy it. If you love the books, you come in, you're really going to enjoy it. But you might, like we've done, say like, oh, it would have been nice to have had this, but it was still very good.
Yeah, and and then extra shout out to Denis Villeneuve. I honestly think he's crafted not just one of the greatest sequels of all time, because I think that'll be up there with Aliens. I think it'll be up there Terminator 2,
Definitely.
Evil Dead 2, to me. Like I said, if people know me, I was calling Dune Part 2 the Evil Dead 2 of the Dune franchise. And if anybody knows that Evil Dead 2 is my favorite film of all time, that's a lot of praise going towards that. But like I said, I think it's a astonishing cinematic achievement with Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
And just another thing to Denis Villeneuve, I think again, I said it in the first film, I say it in this one too. I think he really is just clarifying again why he's like one of the most sensational filmmakers of our time. I think he brought the pages of Frank Herbert's novel to life, and I think it also at the same time it seems like his cinematic vision for it, but also it's a love letter to the book, and I just love that. I think he honors the source material. I think it's a very honorable, faithful adaptation as well. And then it just feels like a love letter, and Denis Villeneuve having the time of his life. I know he's talked about, he wants to do another film and then do Dune Messiah, but he's not rushing Dune Messiah. And you have no idea how much that means to me, because there's so many. the movie business is a business at the end of the day. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
It's for him to come out and say I'm not rushing Dune Messiah, I'm taking my time and all that stuff. So the rumors are that he's doing Rendezvous with Rama, which is another sci-fi property. I actually hope he goes and does that, because I hope he does like the Christopher Nolan treatment, like he did Batman Begins, then he did Prestige, did Batman the Dark Knight, then he did Inception,
Yeah.
and then he did the Dark Knight Rises.
Nothing wrong with
And
that.
I hope he has that balance in there to where it. What do you call like a creative refresher for the mind?
Yeah, you gotta cleanse your palate a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
You just don't go from one to the other to the other. Otherwise, why not just film them simultaneously?
Yeah, and
You know.
I hope he does that and stuff like that. But like I said, it's just an astonishing achievement by him, and what a great film. I absolutely love that. I've seen it 6 times. I'm like, I'm gonna wear it out.
a lot of
I
times.
got to go see it again in IMAX. I can't say that enough to people. Please go see this in the biggest, loudest theater that you can see, because your crappy speaker and your TV at home will not do this film justice.
Well, that sound design. I mean, there was times where you felt like you were in the battle, or you were riding the worm. I mean, it rumbled that place, and it was awesome. I loved every bit of that.
Yeah,
it sound is such a core part of any movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's goosebump inducing. It's just
definitely was.
Like, especially the shot where Paul is walking towards the sea of Fremen, and then that sandworm comes out of the ground, and you hear that clicking sound that the sandworms make. It was rad. But I just, like I said, I can't, I gotta find a stopping point, because I can talk about this movie for 16 hours
easy
straight.
to do.
But one thing that I think it was somebody said, hopefully I don't know who said it, but I totally agree with what they said, and is the one extra special thing about this is that I'm grateful for these films, because seeing the Dune book and all that stuff, we've talked about you can have really bad adaptions, and I've got a buddy who's a Green Lantern fan, and he had to go back in 2011 and see that Green Lantern movie, and watch his character cinematically butchered, or his character cinematically adapted and butchered on screen, and what didn't even
still not fixed.
Yeah, it's still not fixed. And like 2009 Hellboy, I love Hellboy, and I seen that disaster on screen. So it's just like, I'm just truly grateful what Denis Villeneuve has crafted, because I think these films are phenomenal and just a great adaptation of the book. Now, at the end of the day, everybody's gonna be like, so what do you like better, the book or the movie? Well, I've rarely ever heard anybody say they won't go back to the original IP, like a video game, a comic book, or something like that. Like, I've always, of course, I'm going to go back to the Dune novel, because that's what we know and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like I said, I grateful is the big word here. I'm just absolutely grateful for these films and what he created. And then also, it's another inspiring thing just to get people to pick up Frank Herbert's novel. That's what I'm so happy about.
It's in new printings. You're seeing a lot new cover art and stuff, and you're introducing an older book to a new audience, which is always really nice. I mean, you get that a lot with music nowadays, because a lot of directors that are filming now are going back to their youth, and they're using music that was popular then, that it means stuff to them, so they're getting introduced to new music and stuff from, like I say, from my youth when I was a kid, and seeing books kind of get that popularity treatment is really nice, especially Dune, because it was so far ahead of its time when it was printed. When it was introducing these concepts of this religious fanaticism, which was super prevalent in the United States at the time, and kind of shining a light on that. It's still happening today. I mean, it just goes to show you that there is nothing new under the sun. Everything just comes back around, and we got to keep concepts like this out there and fresh in people's minds, or else we're subject to bad things happening when we don't remember this kind of stuff is out there. So it's great.
And then like I know, just like like you said too, it's keeping the relevance too is just like that little spark of like leading people. It's like I see a lot of like I want to say book purists, but I see a lot of people like say like, because I've been attacked already. I knew this was going to happen. Like people are like, if you like Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2, he's like, you're not. It's a spit in the face to Frank Herbert's novel, and I'm just like, come on, guys. I'm like, it's just like most recently Stranger Things. They had Metallica, Master of Puppets playing, and it's like that would I love it that's going to lead somebody to go listen to that entire album. It's just like, that's awesome, and I think that's how everybody's mental thing should be, is like, if the Dune films inspire people to go read Frank Herbert's novel, that's a W in my book.
And you know what's going to happen? I would say, 20 years from now, we're going to see this once in a lifetime great sci-fi movie come out that we can't even wrap our brain around right now, that someone says, I saw Dune, I saw Dune 2, in 2024, and it inspired me to look into sci-fi and become a sci-fi fan, and now we've got these new people coming along that are going to shape what our grandkids would see, or in your case, Evie, and it's a good thing. I mean, there's no harm in opening up people's imaginations, no harm in opening up people's interest into new things. So why people want to tear other people down for their opinions on this stuff, it just always dumbfounded me. Other than it's the internet age, and everyone's just so used to bad mouthing people because it's so easy to do.
Unfortunately, the trolls have a voice as well, so that's unfortunate. But and like the closing thing, like I said, I think it's a cinematic achievement, and as a lifelong fan of the book, I think it is an absolute visual dream come true. I never felt for an ounce of a second in this film that anything disrespectful to the source material of Frank Herbert. I think the message, that the core soul message of the book, Denis Villeneuve nailed. And like I said, I love this film so much. It's one of my favorite films now, all time. And I just, I think it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be one of those classic things that you're sitting there like, I was alive to see Star Wars on the big screen. I was alive to see Lord of the Rings on the big screen. It's going to be one of those monumental things that I was alive to witness Dune on the big screen.
Yeah, I believe so as well.
The only heartbreaking and sad thing about the Dune Part 2 and 1 is that Frank Herbert was not alive to see it. I absolutely think he would have loved what he's seen. I know, his son Brian Herbert has said that he's honoring my father's material and stuff on screen, and I think if Frank Herbert was alive, he would have been very proud of what Villeneuve did, and I think Villeneuve himself should feel proud because it's, once again, I've gone back to other IPs that have been done terribly and handled very, very bad and all that stuff. And I'm thankful. I'm grateful. I can't, how thankful I am and grateful that he's made these films. But all right, we gotta close this bad boy out. Sorry, we're gonna rant forever, but this was really fun, man. We gotta do this again. I was like, I've got so much more to say. I'll let you watch it a couple more times yourself.
I definitely want to do that. I want to.
We'll do like a spoiler talk number 2, because like I said, and once you get done reading Dune Messiah too, we can do some connective
that'd be
stuff.
Cool. Yeah,
we can talk about.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about how they could set that up and stuff like that, because we got a little bit into it in this little breakdown. But it was a lot of fun. But so now that you've seen it, are you going to sit on it, or do you give scores to movies, or are you just like?
I posted on Facebook, that you and I went and saw it, and I gave it 5 stars, but I couldn't find the star emoji, so I did a little popcorn bucket. So I did 5 little popcorn buckets, I mean, it's. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't see anything that I would change about it if I was so inclined to do so. And it was such a great follow up to the first one, which I really, really enjoyed. And I look at it like this: if even say 10 years ago, they tried to do this, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, there's times where you got to wait for the technology to catch up, and I think we're at a point where visually it was an achievement because of that. Without the technology we have in place with visual effects and all the experience of Denis Villeneuve and the other things that he's done, and then all of his cast members all led up to this point, at some point you just got to say this would not have been possible a few years ago, just because
Yeah.
the characters wouldn't have been right. Everything just wouldn't have been right, and the experiences of them leading to this created this movie exactly as we saw it, and that's what made it great. So sometimes you got to wait. Good things come to he who waits, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Just a great achievement.
Yeah, and then like you pointed to as well, the subject matter of what Frank Herbert did with that novel, and it's still it's ageless. It's still 60 years later, it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. I mean, even in a lot of cases, even more so because we haven't learned from 60 years of all this stuff to just say like, hey, we're still letting this happen. I mean, it is still
the
going
unfortunate
on to
human
this very
condition.
day. Humans be human.
Yep.
It's just the way it is.
But yeah, like I said with my closing thing, I said what Peter Jackson cinematically achieved for the fantasy genre with Lord of the Rings, I think Villeneuve achieved in sci-fi with Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
And I think he crafted the cinematic epic of our time, and it's just like, once again, I think you got to it as well. It's like we're gonna be looking back 20, 30 years from now and be like, I got to witness that in theaters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was incredible.
And for the first time in a long time, a really good sci-fi movie that didn't lean on a monster.
Yeah.
Other than the human monster that we are.
Yeah.
And the Harkonnen with their, black armor, their beetle-like, appearance and stuff. It was just still, when it's all said and done, it's just people killing people.
Yep. And and then it's really, it's so funny because you go back 60 years ago, and that's what Frank Herbert had to what do you call it, like aggravatingly juggle with was he made Dune Part 1 or Dune 1 the book, and people are like, oh, it's just another white savior thing, and then he comes out with Dune Messiah. He's like, no, you guys didn't get it. He's like, no, I don't want that image at all. And it's the same thing with Dune Part 1. After it ended, everybody's like, oh, here we go with another white savior thing, and then you do Dune Part 2, and it's a completely, Villeneuve had to get that message across. We're seeing the rise of a tyrant, and it's the rise and the fall of a tyrant. So
he's not his father.
Yep,
he's not somebody who's for the people and cares. He just, now that he's at Tataract, he's like, this is what we do. This is the direction.
Power can destroy somebody. Yeah. It's just like, but once again, Len, I really appreciate you doing this. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, we're probably definitely going to do like a part 2 spoiler talk and stuff like that. But I was glad to get this out because I did my spoiler free review, but there was so much stuff, like I said something and I'm like, I can't tell you what I mean by that because I can't tell all that stuff. So hopefully this fleshed out a little bit more of what I was trying to say, and then also getting your great thoughts. This was incredible. So I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, we make sure you give this video a thumbs like it on Instagram, all that stuff. Like I said, and guys, go out and see Dune Part 2. It's one of those things you will not regret. I think it's not just if you're not even a fan of the book, I think it's a cinematic experience that you're never going to forget, and it's a jewel of a film, of a cinematic experience that you definitely have to witness. And but once again, Chad, thank you so much for being on here. This was awesome. I had a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to do it again. This is incredible.
Love talking movies always.
But once again, guys, I appreciate you guys listening, and like I said, we got to it before. We're all movie nerds, and everybody has their own corner in the cinematic world. Don't go tear down somebody because they liked or disliked this film and all that stuff. And like I said, we're all in this. We're all of this, enjoying this stuff together. So, but once again, thanks you guys for listening, and long live cinema.